What is up, guys? This is Ryan the Wolf, and welcome back to investigating the Walten files. It's been about a year since the last one, but I did get it out like I promised. Originally, I was actually going to skip over this episode due to how long it was, but then I just kind of went, F it. And now here we are. This episode is going to be a bit different, where instead of talking about 2 episodes and 2 shorts, I'm only going to be talking about 1 due to it being an hour long. So anyways, let's get right into Walten Files episode 3. The episode starts out with the intro from episode 1, except with some skipping. It then starts fast forwarding through both episodes 1 and 2 as a picture of a woman fades into the foreground of the screen. The picture then switches to Jenny Letterson, Sophie's special friend. The footage we're looking at is from October 15th, 1982, about 4 years after the disappearance of Ashley Parks, and is footage from an arcade game developed by Bunny Smiles Incorporated titled BunnyFarm. For it being 1982, this game is pretty damn advanced, being an RPG-styled game with complicated features. The highest grossing game from that year was Pac-Man, and all it was just a yellow dot running from ghosts. This game has interaction-based mechanics, screen recording capabilities, cutscenes with voice acting, and the ability to know who is playing and if they're by themselves. Wait a minute, what? Anyways, this episode is mostly about Jenny and Sophie playing BunnyFarm. We get to the save file selection screen, and we see a few of the saved names. BSI Test, Jenny, duh. Another BSI Test, Starla, Janitor, and what I can safely assume is Chris. Starla and Chris are 2 people who are named that haven't made an appearance in the series yet. Sophie, or Soapy as she accidentally puts as her save file name, starts the game, and we get into our first cutscene. If you look in the background at the beginning of the cutscene, you can see a couple of familiar pictures on frames. A picture of Jack Walten, and one that looks like a picture of Ashley Parks. The characters talk about the annual fruit festival and how pretty much everyone somehow forgot to prepare for it. The cutscenes cut out and skip at times, which is understandable since this is the 1980s. A hippo named Pete comes up to tell them that he's willing to help them prepare for the festival for a few small favors, and... Really? Hi? What the fuck? And they agree, the screen going to black as a dark figure pops into the background at the last second. While the game loads, Sophie mentions how the characters seem familiar to her somehow, and then Jenny starts backseat gaming.
Okay, so you use this thing to move around.
Stop backseat gaming! While Jenny is explaining how she's seen some weird glitches in the game, we can see a familiar gray rabbit near the bottom of the screen, hiding behind a tree. Sophie then walks over to the right side of the screen, and we can see a wishing well with eyes on it. Kind of creepy, but I'm sure it won't have any sort of significance later on. Jenny then starts talking about how Bunny Smiles Incorporated has been relevant due to the disappearance of Brian Stells.
Apparently there was this one employee that drove to some forest a few days ago, not too far away from here actually. He hasn't been seen around ever since he drove to that place.
Well, I hope he's doing alright.
Yeah, I hope so too. I wonder what happened to him. While she talks about this, we can see the head of another character near the bottom of the screen that you can't reach due to it being behind a fence. Jenny then starts talking about the disappearance of Ashley Parks.
This young employee named Ashley, young adult, very pretty. She became some sort of urban legend around here.
Why?
People say she died inside of some old bunker from the company. Her body was never found. Most say she was privately buried. Others say she's still inside that place.
Nah, I doubt that she'd still be stuck in that bunker. It had to have been a private burial, right? Right? Soapy eventually gets to her first level, and I just realized that I called her the wrong name again. Sophie eventually gets to her first level, which is titled Bon's Burgers. Cutscene starts with Billy asking Bon why he isn't at the barn with the others. But what Billy didn't realize is that he actually did take his schizophrenia medication because Bon isn't in the cutscene. The cutscene glitches out a bit more, and we can see a more realistic looking Billy animatronic sitting in the corner, which I ended up forgetting about while reviewing it again and got a massive chill throughout my entire body. But somehow Sophie and Jenny just didn't see it. After that bit of nightmare fuel, the game goes back to normal with only a couple of weird glitches now and then. Sophie goes into the game's basement where we can see a machine that looks like a frog. She puts the battery in, and the frog machine turns on, turning into a tic-tac-toe minigame. She beats the minigame, and Billy's sprite goes off the screen for a moment and comes back carrying a present box. Sophie collects the present, and we are treated to a very nice photo of Ashley. Jesus fuck! Quick little scriptwriter's note, I was actually watching BunnyFarm while working on this script, and it was about 4 in the morning when this part came up, causing me to actually scream like a bitch. There are other moments similar to this event that I actually added to the script, sort of like a recreation. The screen goes to black and we go to footage from the day after, but this time the gray rabbit is visible in the back. Okay, hold on, is everyone okay if I just call them bugs for now? I know what their actual name is, but I'm saving that for later on when it's revealed in the video. But I feel dumb for just calling them the gray rabbit. So is just everyone alright with me calling them bugs until then?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Anyways, it starts out with Sophie telling Jenny, who was absent during most of the recording the day before, about what had happened and how it seemed like someone was trying to tell her something. Jenny goes home and Sophie continues playing the game, but when she selects her save file, the game glitches out and gives her this warning. Oh no, there's a high chance BunnyFarm.ppx file data has been corrupted or its information has been altered/replaced by a third party. We recommend you unplug the machine immediately. Opening the file may lead to unknown glitches and errors in the levels. If you do want to continue, however, we warn you that the machine could suffer major changes and, at its worst case, a complete shutdown, deleting all valuable information in it. Do you still wish to continue? Whatever had happened the night before corrupted the game, making the save itself so unstable it could cause the machine to go through a complete memory wipe. Sophie, of course, continues anyway to figure out the mystery of the glitches. Even though the game is apparently corrupted, it's mostly glitch-free, surprisingly. She makes her way over to Banny and selects her minigame called Hippo House. The cutscene starts off with Banny showing up to a farm where she meets a horse farmer named Holly. Oh yeah, by the way, Banny's lesbian.
Wow! Pretty horse girl!
Hey, so editor's note, I actually didn't notice this until editing this, but if you look in the background behind the trees, you can see the animatronic version of Bon hiding back there just watching. Holly tells Banny not to open the pigs' cages unless instructed to, but Banny being Banny, does it anyway, releasing the pigs into Pete's house. During the cutscene of the pigs going to the house, you can see a face appear on the right side of the house. It's hard to tell whose face, but it's definitely a face. Holly then tells Bon and Banny that the pigs have gone into different sections of the house and that they need keys for the rooms in order to get them out. She disappears from the screen and we can see a missing poster with what is most likely Jack Walten on it in the background. It cuts to the interior of Pete's house and we can see 3 doors with different colored locks on them. Blue, green, and orange or red, depending on the person, I guess. Sophie sees the blue key under the couch, somehow, and she looks for a way to figure out how to get Pete's fat ass up. She does this by moving the fishbowl to the spot across from Pete, which wakes him up apparently, and she is able to get the key. She opens the door and goes inside, showing a large room with 4 different openings. But we don't get to see what happens in there as the screen goes dark and Sophie is teleported back into the living room of the house, which now has some changes. Pete's kids, or grandkids, I don't fucking know, suddenly don't have eyes anymore, and one of the pictures in the back have been replaced with one of Felix Kranken. The key for the red door is also just laying on the floor, and Sophie is able to pick it up. After she does so, Banny suddenly looks up at where Bon's sprite is, and Sophie goes into the door with the red lock. Inside is a puzzle minigame, the pig being the prize for fixing the picture. Sophie talks about how the errors in the game seem to be trying to tell her something while she fixes the puzzle. She does so, and an image of a decayed-looking Vanny animatronic shows up. I said Vanny. And an image of a decayed-looking Banny animatronic shows up on screen, along with a picture of a parts and service room door. The name Susan Woodings appears on the screen, and we can hear an audio log from her, along with an image of her face, talking about how she had stayed later to help clean up a birthday party, and how the week has been strange. She talks about how they had opened, despite the disappearance of Jack Walten, and how the birthday party, being the first one in the restaurant since opening, was a success. During the party, Susan noticed something that was wrong with Bon's right arm and has decided to try and fix it since she's the engineer. No, not that one. And she mentions that Chris and Felix were not around, Chris being the one whose name we saw in the game's save files earlier. The Cutscene finishes and the game continues, but Bond's sprite is replaced with an image of Susan Wooding's pasted over what looks like Banny's sprite. Sophie picks up a wrench and walks over to Bond. As soon as she touches Bond with the wrench, the background turns into an image of the animatronic before switching to a jump scare, implying that Bond grabs Susan. Surely this will turn out fine, and it was just this. Okay, we all know where this is going. We can see Susan's face rapidly decompose before it is covered up by Banny's, and the game comes back. Bond, most likely the animatronic version since he doesn't have a hat like the other one, being our sprite now. Sophie grabs the present right across from us, and we're treated with an image of Susan, slumped over in a corner and her face elongated with some text at the bottom. I am still alive, but I can't move, and I am having trouble breathing. And my stomach feels weird. The image disappears and Sophie brings the present over to the Banny in the corner, and the animatronic starts breathing before a screen pops up saying, "Level completed. Great job, Soapy. You just made Susan beautiful." Referencing what Bond had said before killing Rosemary Walten in episode 2.
Rose broken will fix you. You will beautiful. You will beautiful. You will beautiful.
Fuck me! From the text on the image of Susan being dead and the line from the last episode,
"The rabbit is starving. The rabbit is starving. Is starving. Is starving. Is starving."
it implies that, like Ashley, she wasn't immediately killed by Bond. I didn't mention this in the first review because it somehow flew right over my head. But Ashley was alive for days after Bond attacked her, stuck inside of the Billy animatronic, screaming for help that never came. Susan, however, starved to death, which, by the way, takes the average human 8 to 21 days to die. It's not known if Bond waits until after the victim dies before stuffing them into one of the suits, or if he just immediately does it whether or not they're still alive. But the thought of Susan starving to death and having jagged pieces of metal and wire sticking into her while she's still alive is terrifying to think of. The footage cuts back to the game, and Sophie once again mentions how the game is trying to tell her something.
But that was very confusing and scary, but it felt like I was being told a story or a certain event. I mean...
Yeah, no shit, honey!
She walks back over to where Banny used to be standing, but her sprite is instead replaced with a framed photo of Susan Wooding's. I didn't notice this until it cuts back to the starting point after that, but Billy and Pete are also missing from their spots. She goes to a spot that acts as a tip screen, and we can see a pair of legs on the left side of the screen, implying that someone is standing there. We don't know who this is yet, but I thought I'd go ahead and mention it. She scrolls through the tips before she accidentally goes to a screen with what looks like a notepad, the words Linda Thompson. Do not touch on it. It seems like a few entries from what might be a journal. I'm unsure of this, however, due to most of the pages looking like something out of a Black Ops campaign mission. We finally get an eligible note that talks about how Felix has been drinking more than usual. It goes through a couple of more blacked out pages before we get another note talking about how Jack and Rose had their third kid named Molly, and how Jack and Felix were talking to Cyberfun Tech. The next eligible note is from the day after Christmas that talks about how Jack and Felix made a gray rabbit doll for Ed and Molly, which Molly names Rocket. Wow, so I did that whole bit of asking if I can call them bugs until their name is actually revealed for pretty much nothing. Awesome. It also mentions how Felix has been drinking more and more often, but refuses to do anything despite feeling bad about it. The next note talks about how Felix wrapping around both the project and alcohol is getting worse and worse. The final note from Linda is a note to Felix, saying how she is leaving him due to his problem, with an apologetic note written in red ink beside it, most likely by Felix himself. Sophie attempts to see if there are any more notes, but after flipping through several blank pieces of paper, it kicks her back to the tip screen. Sophie leaves the tip screen and walks over to Buzu to play his minigame, Lily's Birthday. Cut to a cutscene of Buzu explaining that he needs someone to test games made for the party, with images of someone's face slightly visible behind him. We cut back to the game as what looks like the animatronic Bond sprite next to a large birthday cake with 3 presents below it. Sophie goes to the far right of the screen and notices that she can interact with something over there. When she does, a text box with a person's face pops up, both the text and audio severely scrambled.
What?
She walks around and interacts with more of these glitch people, as I'll go ahead and call them, before going up to what looks like a stage and interacts with it. Being taken to a pitch black room, the sprite doing something to Buzu before a cutscene starts playing abruptly. The game seems to be a bit buggy though, since she selects two that are the exact same, but the game says it's not correct. She finds the right pairing for the Buzu image, and then tries to find the right one for the other version of it. She fails the first time, even though once again the two images she selects are exactly the same, and tries to do the two squares again. The second image though is a bit different. Not too big of a change, I don't think, it looks pretty set. You'd have to squint to be able to figure out the difference between the two, The game then glitches out again and immediately gives Sophie the win without having to match the other tiles. The next game is Buzu's hardest minigame. Spot the differences. Sophie shows us her epic gaming skills and, that actually kind of hurt to say that, Jesus Christ. And completes the first few puzzles. She then gets to the fourth one and, well...
Nope, that's not the difference. That's not the difference. Congratulations! You completed my game. Now, time for the prizes.
Yeah. Sophie goes up to the prize table, now playing as Buzu, and grabs his prize. A brand new pair of eyes! Oh, wait, never mind, it's a whole head. Wow. Mom, please come pick me up, I'm scared. Now, on the distorted image of Charles, the person in this image, there's no text or anything on the screen. But if you have captions on, like I did so it would make reading the notes from earlier a bit easier, the words, "I don't remember my face," will show up. The game then cuts back to the starting area, and Sophie talks about how the people who are dying in these games are people she may have known when she was younger. She comes up to the well, and the eyes on it are now looking up at where Shaw is. Sophie goes up to Shaw and interacts with her, putting her into an unnamed minigame. The minigame, as described in the severely bugged cutscene, is hide and seek. A countdown from 10 starts, and after it finishes, we are instructed to seek someone by the Shaw burger. The game starts, and there's a couple of things that are a bit concerning. First of all is the two spots at the top right, labeled with an E and an M. Most likely being for Ed and Molly, as mentioned earlier in the notes. The second is a bear that slightly resembles the head from way earlier on in the game. There are 3 different places Sophie can go to find Shaw. The forest, what I'm going to assume is a hen house, and a pink building. Sophie goes to the forest first, but doesn't find anything there. When the game kicks her back to the starting area of the minigame, the bear is gone, and the 2 red blobs in the top right corner are more resemblant of human bodies. Sophie then checks the pink building, which as it turns out is pretty much a greenhouse, but doesn't find anything there either, except for a lawn design that kind of looks like someone's face. Wait, what's that in the background? Wait a minute, that's Shaw. We found her. Shouldn't we have won? This game's bugged. The game kicks Sophie back to the starting point, and now Rocket is in the top right corner, the 2 bodies going back to their more blob-like shape. Sophie finally checks the hen house, where she finds Shaw and what looks like a missing poster on the floor. After selecting her, the screen starts transitioning to what looks like artwork of a decapitated and bloody Shaw before quickly cutting back to black. Shaw, in her animatronic form, then tells us to hide, and another countdown begins. The countdown ends, and we're put back into the game. Sophie decides to hide in the forest, and obviously it takes forever for Shaw to find her because now it's nighttime. Shaw slowly makes her way to the front of the screen and says the following.
Am I still beautiful to you, Sophie?
This is the first time that Sophie has audibly reacted to one of these jump scares. We then cut to a screenshot of the parts and service store with the text, "I know where he is, Rosie," and "Follow me" popping up above it, and then another countdown begins. After the countdown, the screen goes black before it switches to what looks like a hallway in Bond's Burgers. The walls become bloody and an image of Shaw with Rosemary's face on it pops up. I had to look this up to figure out what it says, and it reads, "Hold up! You can't enter this level yet. First you have to..." caption pops up on YouTube that says, "Missing, Rosemary Walten, last seen 07-19-1974, accompanied by the implied screams of Rose." The animatronic version pops up, freaking and glitching out before the screen cuts back to black. It then cycles through all the death scenes in BunnyFarm before showing the logo for it, Bond's color scheme changing to rockets, and the two red silhouettes next to it, once again, most likely being Ed and Molly. The game then cuts to a cutscene with the well in BunnyFarm's main HUD area looking around before staring at Sophie as a purple and white bear rises from the well. The bear tells Sophie that this is the magic well of memories, a well that can show the most repressed memories in the player's mind. The bear asks Sophie what she would like to remember, and she is given a piece of paper and a pencil in the game. She asks the bear who he is, but he doesn't reply, giving the paper back to Sophie. She then draws the two red figures she keeps seeing throughout the game, and after doing this, the game freaks out and the screen slowly gains a red tint, before cutting to an image of a house with the date 05/02/1974, which turns out to be Sophie's old house. There's a short cutscene with Rocket talking about cleaning a corn maze, for some reason, before they're interrupted by a ringing phone. The phone gets answered, and a recording of a phone call between Jack and Felix is played. Jack asks Felix if he can take Ed and Molly to a school event and then bring them home afterwards, because Jack is too busy with paperwork and Rose is taking Sophie to the dentist. Felix hesitantly agrees to do it. Jack then explains that he can pick them up at 5 and to get them home at 9. Sophie states that she remembers the conversation as the cutscene ends, putting her back into the game. The bear, who we'll just call Doug for now, tells Sophie that this memory is locked very deep and that she needs to find them. She walks around for a bit before a sprite of Doug appears behind her, holding a present. He sets it down and Sophie interacts with it. A poster for the Brighton High Spring Party, the party Jack was talking about earlier, showing up on screen. Sophie goes back to where she had started and stands there for a bit, the sound of crying fading in. Two red figures, most likely the ones crying, or laughing, they may have just finished watching another shitty Ace Family video, walks in from the top right and starts circling around Bond's sprite. The game, or maybe the recording itself, then glitches again, and Sophie follows the figures to a black car before Sophie is put into another cutscene. The cutscene starts with the two figures talking about how they need to get ready for the school event before putting their skin back on. Molly is looking for Rocket, who she eventually finds, and they leave for the party. The cutscene ends and we're at the school as Bond. Sophie walks around a bit before Rocket comes from the left side of the screen and starts circling Bond, much like Ed and Molly did earlier. Rocket tells Sophie to follow them, and she does. But much like a Ubisoft game, the NPC goes several times faster than Sophie can. And she's constantly spammed with the instructions to follow them. Sophie walks through a wall, and when she reappears on the other side, the Bond sprite has been replaced with one of Ed and Molly. Apparently, Molly lost Rocket again, and they were walking through the school to find them before looking for Felix so they could leave. They find him in a bar? Why is there a bar in a... Actually, never mind. I totally understand why teachers would need a bar. You doing okay there? You look a lot better and less creepy in the Relocate project. Felix has been drinking and decides, well, time to take the kids back home, I guess, while struggling to walk in a straight line. We cut to footage of Felix driving down the road and having a subtitled conversation with Ed and Molly about how he's not drunk.
I am not fucking drunk.
Can you tell the time?
Yes. I am not fucking drunk.
Felix starts apologizing to the kids, but whenever the kids start responding to the apology, the subtitles say something different from what they're actually saying.
It's alright. We get that today wasn't the best for you. We understand. Everything is gonna be okay.
Felix then proceeds to say, have y'all ever heard of the Fast and Furious movies? And tries to do a Tokyo Drift, only to flip the car. We then get a screen that says, oh no, you got the bad ending. You couldn't finish the barn tasks in time. You crashed the car. You killed them, with an image of what might be the mangled face of Ed. It's 3 in the fucking morning. Why am I watching this? The screen then shows Rocket's face, just staring at the screen, before cutting to a new picture taken in the woods. Doug appears out of thin air to state the obvious.
They didn't go home that night.
Felix, in a state of drunken panic, buries Ed and Molly, without even checking to see if they're dead, by the way, and leaves them there. Their souls emerge from the ground and fade into Rocket, and that's the whole reason I've been using they-them pronouns for Rocket. Not because they're non-binary, but because they are literally two people. Rocket stands up and causes me to get scared by the sound of a ringing phone. We go to a cutscene of what is implied to be Felix's house, due to his phone having 25 missed calls from Jack.
You have 25 new messages.
Jack, unlike what TikTok was implying for a while,
Felix! Pick up the fucking phone! You stupid bitch!
calmly, angrily, and desperately, all at the same time, asks for Felix to pick up the phone. It has apparently been 3 hours since Felix was supposed to bring Ed and Molly home, and Jack has been calling everyone just to get a hold of him to figure out what had happened. While the voicemail goes on, a creepy looking face, most likely Jack's, fades onto the screen. Yeah, thanks for that. After the phone call abruptly ends, Doug tells us that there's still something Sophie forgot to remember, and that they have been waiting for her. The game fades in from black, and we can see the Banny, Buzu, and Shaw animatronics standing around a present and some candles. Sophie walks up and interacts with all three of them, unsettling images of their animatronic counterparts appearing on screen. Bond comes out from the darkness and walks up to Sophie, and we see a darker image of Bond, before a full body image appears on the screen.
Oh,
fuck off. Ow! Fuck my knee! Oh, are you here to scare me too? Do it then, pussy! Come on! I'm waiting for it! Oh, that wasn't actually that bad. I'm sorry for getting mad at you. And with that, episode 3 ends with some credits that reveals that Doug's name was actually Showbear. Episode 3 of BunnyFarm is my favorite episode out of the 3 because it answers a good majority of the questions I was left asking and does a pretty good job of doing it. Hell, the only question this episode didn't answer is, what happened to Jack? I should also mention that people were comparing this episode to Petscop and not the entire series in general. That's my bad, I didn't research it well enough. Showing how some of the characters ended up the way they did was done very well, and in a pretty scary fashion as well. For instance, the hide-and-seek minigame with Shaw may have actually been a metaphor for what Rosemary Walten experienced, but out of order. Rose goes backstage to find her husband when a voice calls out to her, the hide section in the minigame. And then Rose attempts to hide from Bond when he tries to kill her, obviously failing, the seek section of the minigame. Remember, Sophie was playing as Bond during this minigame. BunnyFarm also explains the significance of certain unnamed characters in the past 2 episodes. Rocket made several small appearances in the last episode, but I was confused on what significance he had if he wasn't actually a part of the main cast of Bond's Burgers characters. Finding out that Bond is haunted by the ghost of Jack Walton's kids, who were killed by Felix's bad choices, was mind-blowing at the time I originally watched this. There are actually some things from the video that actually foreshadowed this event. Earlier on during the Spot the Difference section of Boozy's minigame, we can see Billy playing with a toy car and 3 dolls. In the first image, the 2 dolls on the floor are green, but in the second image, they're red, much like the spirits of Molly and Ed were. Anyways, guys, that's all I really have to say for this episode, as I've pretty much covered the entire thing, and episode 4 won't be out until January. I do, guys? That's gay.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
I do hope you guys enjoyed this video, and the Walten Files, along with the Mandela Catalog, is my favorite in terms of analog horror, and I am very excited to see and review more of it, especially with episode 4 coming sometime in January. Walten Files manages to creep you out and give you an uneasy feeling while not having to use a shit ton of jump scares to do so, and that's what I love about it. Once episode 4 does come out, I will immediately watch it and then immediately get to work on making the review video for that. I want to thank Shiba Inu Ray, BC Warfare, Error Protege, Origin and It Be Ryan for some help with extra voices. They are awesome people, and their channels will be in the description below. I also want to go ahead and give a big thanks to Martin Walls and all of the amazing people who helped him create the series. Anyways, I think it's about time to end this very long video. So I do hope you guys enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed working on it, even if it meant I went a few nights with some horrible nightmares because of it. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you smash the like button, and maybe leave a comment below if you found something that I somehow missed. Once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys later. Wait a minute. What the fuck am I doing? Last time I did this shit, I got screwed. Nah, fuck this. I'm just gonna sit here in the dark until the video ends. I'm not joking. I will sit here until the video ends.
24/7, 365. Waited too long, now it's my shine. I'm stunning when I'm running in the limelight. You steady running your mouth, cause I rhyme tight. 24/7, 365. Waited too long, now it's...